I love and miss the stealth-focused games from the big developers. From the PS1 to the PS3, we had all manner of stellar stealth games from Siphon Filter, Metal Gear Solid, Thief, Tenchu, and more. But now, usually when stealth is seen in a big AAA game, it is offered as an option, not as the main focus of the experience. Which brings me to one of the finest in the genre, Splinter Cell. For some background, I love this series. The original trilogy on the Xbox was and is fantastic, with Chaos Theory arguably being one of the best, if not the best, in the series. While it was convoluted to have two different versions of Double Agent, I ended up enjoying both, especially how you needed to maintain your cover as you took down the enemy. While Conviction is a divisive entry, and I understand that it may have gone a bit too far in the mainstream direction, along with not opting for no-kill options among other things, I still find it to be a bit underrated. Story-wise, I really like it as it's a more personal story for Sam. The use of black and white and the mark and execute was really engaging. Plus, the co-op story campaign is a true highlight that delivers a great twist. And the most recent entry so far, Blacklist, which I think managed to provide something that Conviction fans would like, along with adding back mechanics and options that were staples for the series. My biggest issue with it was how Ironside was not voicing Sam. I understand that later on we learned that he was really ill and thankfully recovered, but if you couldn't get Ironside back, then make a spin-off and use an original character. So my point with all of this is I really enjoy this series and have been waiting for Ubisoft to do something with it. And finally, after years, we're getting a new game, but it's something that I don't think that is needed. Ubisoft announced that Splinter Cell will be receiving a remake, and while I am happy in some ways that Ubisoft is giving Splinter Cell some attention, this is not what the series needs. Splinter Cell doesn't need a remake, it needs a sequel. So in October 2021, Ubisoft announced that Splinter Cell would be creating a remake to the original game. We don't really know a lot about this remake, but we have some information on it. It's still early in development, but the team wants to make sure to maintain the spirit of the original games. It is going to be built from the ground up. Some design elements are going to be added to match player comfort, and it's going to remain linear and not be an open world game. Now there are some good points that I like here, like it being a linear game and not being an open world one. I could see playing through some hub-like areas, but an open world really doesn't fit Splinter Cell. But I do have some concerns, along with an additional comment that was found on a job posting for the remake. Ubisoft Toronto is looking to hire a scriptwriter to update the original game's story for a modern-day audience. That last sentence is something that I hate to see, because it's usually attached to a game that will end up being disappointing. So when I see update for a modern audience, essentially in regards to a story, this usually means that the writing will be bad, and the historical characters will not be consistent with their established versions. Or it will be an opportunity to include agenda-pushing politics in a game where those types of politics don't belong. And you may think that I'm reading into it a bit too much, but many times when we see an older property come back either in film or in games, the new writers manage to butcher the consistency with the characters. The outliers are the situations where a piece of entertainment is made that respects the history. A good comparison is when Terminator Dark Fate came out. It disrespected historical characters like John and Sarah Connor, and fans were not happy with it. But at the same time, a new video game was released, and that was made by a smaller studio that delivered a quality original experience. Terminator Resistance is one of the best examples of an older property being brought back. Something new of quality is created, and it respects the fans. And most importantly, it understands what makes it special. Or in the film space, Top Gun Maverick is a good example. More pieces of entertainment should look to these examples on how to do it right. Now on an even more general basis, Splinter Cell 1 does not need a remake. Visually it still looks pretty good, especially with the use of its shadows. And while some might say the gameplay is dated, I would argue that it is intentionally and methodically slower on purpose. Your moves are highly calculated and it's still rewarding. Now if a remake of this had to be made, I would opt for something that was done for say Halo 1 and 2. Those developers built a brand new engine on top of the old one. This way the mechanics, story, characters, writing, and sequences all remained intact, but you would get the benefit of modern visuals. Or not, because in those remasters you can toggle between between the old and new. So if I was in charge of doing a remake for Splinter Cell, I would update some of the stuff like the better aiming and shooting from Chaos Theory, keeping it mostly untouched, and then provide a new coat of paint. Now another thing that is still unknown is if Michael Ironside will be returning for this remake. While I enjoyed Blacklist, I did not care for the new voice actor for Sam Fisher. And it wasn't even that he was a bad voice actor, it's just that Michael Ironside is the one and only Fisher. He brings so much to the character just through his excellent acting. One thing that I always found interesting about him is that when he was approached for the role for the first game, he wouldn't take the job unless he helped the writers rework the character and make him more human and add humility to the character. He wanted to flesh out Sam and give him more depth, but realistically I don't know if he'll be returning. He is in his 70s now, and he may want to retire from doing bigger gaming gigs. At the same time, maybe he does want to continue doing this. I worry that maybe he would love to return, but Ubisoft would want someone younger again. Now something sort of related to this that I need to bring up because of how good it was, but at the same time it shows my lack of confidence in Ubisoft with the Splinter Cell property. So as part of a free update to Ghost Recon Wildlands, there was a mission and a few items added to the game where the player could work with Sam Fisher. The mission really wasn't anything special, but hearing Ironside as Sam again was awesome. It was like meeting an old friend after several years, and more importantly, he was written well. This free update overall was pretty good. I thought that this was obviously setting up some type of return for Sam Fisher. Why would you feature one of your most iconic characters in another game and not announce something like a new game or a remastered collection? But sadly nothing came out after this. What was worse, that Ubisoft did the same thing again, but had no new Splinter Cell announcement paired with it. As one of the expansions to Ghost Recon Breakpoint, the player would work with Sam on a side story, along with being able to change their avatar to playing as him. The story here was actually better than the main game, and it was again great seeing Ironside and Fisher return. And again, there was no game announcement or remastered news paired with this. Now don't get me wrong, I did like seeing him appear in those two games, but when he hasn't been in his own game in years and we only see him as guest appearances in others, it shows me you really don't know what you're doing with his character. So as of right now, we're getting a remake for the first game, and I have a lot of concerns surrounding it, especially for a game that does not need a remake. What Splinter Cell needs is a sequel. If Ubisoft wants to make a Splinter Cell game that is more in line with the original games, then make a new story featuring Sam that takes place after Blacklist and has the gameplay be more in the style of those older games. Something else I would say is that Splinter Cell is a stealth game, and that is very niche, and Ubisoft should manage their funds accordingly for their project. This is not going to do Call of Duty numbers, and it doesn't have to. I honestly think a $40 price single player game would be the perfect way to test the waters again with this series, or do a remastered collection set for modern systems with the co-op and multiplayer intact. Even though I'm looking at the red flags so far, seeing stuff that is concerning, I do hope that this remake can prove me wrong. I would like nothing more than to play the game and hear Ironside again, and have a good story and characters with fun stealth gameplay. And if I end up being wrong that this remake won't be good, then I will gladly eat my words. Treat this series with respect and don't forget it, Ubisoft. It is easily one of your best in your library. You are making some of the finest stealth games we ever experienced, and many of us just want our friend back. I wish the team the very best of luck, and I'll say it one more time. Release all of the prior games in a collection so that they are more easily accessible. Make it a Splinter Cell Master Chief collection but with less bugs. What are your thoughts on the upcoming remake? Are you looking forward to it? Are you concerned about it? Let me know in the comments below. If you're interested in being notified of new videos, please hit the subscribe button and bell. And if you would like to support the channel and get early access to content, please check out my Patreon. All of the links will be at the end of this video and within the description. And thank you very much for watching.